Aloha and welcome to the Bear Woznick Adventure, coming to you from Waikiki Beach, right next to St. Augustine's Catholic Church. The altar is actually directly below where I'm sitting right now. Beautiful, beautiful sunrise here in Waikiki. We had a nice, beautiful south swell this weekend. Cindy and I got to go out and do some tandem surfing. Just glad to be here in God's paradise. We have a really cool guest with us today. His name is Peter Giersch. He's written a really cool it's a meditative type book, but it's also like a travel book in a way, talking of Michelangelo. And then he gets into these really fun subjects: death, judgment, heaven, and hell in the Burgundy region. We'll be right back with the Bear Woznick adventure.
Welcome to the Bear Woznick adventure. Kickstart that engine and roll thunder with the pack. Explore the grittiness of manly spirituality. Gain traction in the virtues. Soup up your spiritual engine by turning adversity into adventure. Now here's Bear Woznick. Let's ride.
Aloha, welcome to the Bear Woznick Adventure. We call it the Bear Woznick Adventure because we're all on an adventure. This just happens to be mine, and I get to meet just some really interesting people that I would normally not get to talk story with. We're going to have Peter Giersch on here in a moment about his new book from Sophia, talking of Michelangelo. But, I have a new book coming out. It's called Men of Grit and Grace, Daily Challenges for Men to Chew On. It's basically beef jerky for a man's soul, and it's 366 man meditations. So I'm going to read one of them. So I think the book will be ready for a pre-sale almost any day now, but it actually comes out on August 18th. So this just happens to be one of the morning man meditations. I'm going to use that instead of my morning my monologue. This is a quote by a guy named Moses, who wrote the first 5 books of the Bible, from Genesis 2:17. Then the Lord God formed a man from the dust of the ground and breathed in his nostrils the breath of life, and the man became a living soul. God made men out of mud. In fact, the name Adam means clay. But then God breathed into him life, and man became a living soul. God breathed into man a spiritual, rational soul, thus making man in his own image, and did so with the purpose to have a relationship with him. At the very moment of your conception, God infused into you your very own unique spiritual, rational soul. The soul of a man uses the brain as the organ, but the soul is more than that. The soul is the life force comprised of his mind, his will, and his emotions. In other words, his personality. Man is a rational being, like other animals, who is aware of himself. But man has a greater dignity, for he is also aware that he is aware of himself. Unlike other animals, our soul is infused with a God-breathed spirit so that we can commune with God, who is spirit. Some early church fathers even said that man is an amphibian, for we live in 2 world realms, the earth and in heaven. So you see, a real man is a bucket of grit and of grace, and that's you. Chew on it. Okay, that's a man meditation for my new book, Men of Grit and Grace. So we have our guest today, Peter Giersch, his new book, talking of Michelangelo. And this is and the subtitle is Death, Judgment, Heaven, and Hell in the Burgundy region. This is the kind of book that, authors will write different books, but this is the kind of book that Peter had to write. It's something from deep inside his soul. It's not really it's so much about as a journey into his heart, into the heart of the Lord, and as he takes a journey. So, Peter Giersch, welcome to the Bear Woznick Adventure.
Thanks, Bear. Good to be with you.
Isn't it a bummer when you're praying and all of a sudden, your wife asks you, "Hey, what do you want for your 40th?" your birthday, and you're praying and being spiritual, and then the God says, "Why don't you go to France, go to a retreat?" Don't you hate when that happens? all of a sudden,
that kind of suits me,
yeah,
I can dig it, it's, and that is what happened, God God does guide one, right? You know, if you listen, if you're paying attention, you get that guidance from God. And when I look back on it now, it just seemed like fun at the time. Kind of like I met my wife in a bar and I thought she was cute, and it turned into this like 35-year story together. And the same thing with this retreat, this book. I mean, I saw an ad for a retreat in France. I thought it'd be fun, you know. So you never
But it
know.
was more than that. It kind of jumped out at you, didn't it? I mean, it was like a nudge from the Lord, do you think, or not?
Oh, absolutely. You know, I think that I think that it was a nudge from the Lord, but I think the Lord works with our natural proclivities, right? You know, like
Yeah,
I
yeah.
love to travel. I spoke French. I was a French teacher. So when he put it there, it checked all the boxes. And I was like, yeah, we got to do this. But first, I got to convince my wife, who's just pregnant with our fourth child, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's beautiful. I have a lot of recollections too of my times in France. A little bit different type
Oh,
of
yeah.
journey. Yeah,
Okay.
but we do have one very significant thing in common that I found in your book. But I used to go there to compete in surfing down in
Huh?
Biarritz and Hossegor, Lacanau,
Okay.
Guitry, and even down in San Sebastian in Spain.
Wow.
Which is quite a contrast between Biarritz
Yeah.
and San Sebastian. It's 50 kilometers and two different worlds completely.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I think the greatest thing that experienced, one of the greatest things I experienced is Jamboni fromage.
Oh, yeah. Right. There you go,
You
man.
mentioned it in your book. You love ham
I
and cheese
do. I
sandwiches.
do. Yeah. I love those crepes. Jambon au fromage. That's right. I
Yeah. Well,
always
I
have
would
mine
get
with an egg in it. Yeah.
yeah. Oh, I never got it with egg in it. I would just like them, put extra butter on it, and that's all.
Yeah.
Nothing else. No
Yeah.
Dijon or anything like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but France. The media. It's so funny how you're walking around in France, and it's like, don't these people know where they live? You know how cool this is. You know
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
ancientness of it, and so
Yeah, I love that phrase, as happy as God in France. Like God's pretty happy, but you put God in France, now you can't get any happier, right? Happy
I
as God.
know it. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's like when I speak French food. I mean, I speak food enough, but it's so interesting where I know when I went there for the first time, I thought, I didn't know I had never had food before. You know?
Right? Oh
And
my
then,
gosh. I mean, I lived in London for a semester.
oh, you poor guy.
Right? And then I went to live in France, and it's like you spend tons of money in London and you can't get a decent meal. You can spend 20 francs back in the day and you can get like a bottle of wine and a baguette and some cheese, and you go
Yep.
sit in the Seine and
Yeah.
look across the river to Notre Dame, and you're like in
Yeah.
heaven. It costs you nothing.
Yeah, I know we had our contest every year around the Bastille Day, by the way,
Uh-huh.
in Biarritz. So we would do a night show. We would paddle out and surf. And my wife and I do a tandem surfing where I lift her. They had stadium lights and up above and spotlights down below. And there'd be 20,000 people along the Côte de Basque there, looking down at the surfing. And we could see the waves coming. And so we'd paddle and catch them. Then we couldn't see anything because the lights were blinding and we didn't know if we were going to be running over other people in the water. And then they would do the Bastille Day fireworks while we were
Mm.
out there. And it was just great. But we would sit above the cliffs in Guitry, and all the different tandem teams one would bring bread, one would bring wine, one would bring cheese. And, and
Yeah.
it was just a great experience. I spent about 4 months there one time, just hung out in Biarritz for 4 months, and
Wow.
I just not like the opportunity you had, but it just when you travel the world and surf, everywhere you go, you have the surf tribe.
Oh.
It's a lot like being Catholic, right? You mentioned it.
Hmm.
Wherever you go,
Hmm.
there's a family there, and they're reading the
Yeah.
same
Yeah.
gospel everywhere.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. I always say you could sleep in a Catholic bed in a Catholic owned building almost anywhere in the world. And it's just
Yeah.
part of the universality of, and I have, I've slept in monasteries and retreat centers all over the world. It's like you're always home
Yeah, and then
wherever you
and then
are.
you go to mass, and even if you don't know the
Yeah.
language, it's like, oh, I know that. I hate to say it. It's not like a McDonald's franchise, but it's kind of similar because
Well,
wherever
I
you
mean, it's
go,
just
it's
that
the same.
uniformity, right? You're
Yeah,
always home.
yeah.
It's wherever you are. Yeah.
And then there's the Eucharistic presence.
Right.
That you
Oh
can't,
my gosh.
We're
Yeah.
talking with Peter Giersch in his book, talking of Michelangelo. Give us 1 minute, what inspired this, and then we'll come back and we'll dig into a little bit of your life in this book.
Well, what inspired this book was this trip to France for my 40th birthday to do a retreat in a monastery. And as you can see in the book, I'm having fun. I'm doing all sorts of goofy stuff. And then I get to the monastery and I run smack dab into some serious Christians. These monks, they weren't playing, man. I always say, like, it's if you try to do plumbing on your own and you invite a plumber over and you're like, oh, wait a minute. Nah, that guy knows what he's doing. Look at those tools he's got. Meeting
Well
these
said.
monks, it changed my life, and it created a very powerful experience, which I relate in the book. So,
Well, I got to the point where you're at the monastery and you go down into your room, and it's wall to wall, one whole wall of books, and they smell like leather. And I can see you're just getting drawn in. And that's as far as I got in the book so far. We're talking with Peter Giersch, his new book, Talking to Michelangelo, Death, Judgment, Heaven, and Hell in the Burgundy region. We'll be right back with more of the Bear Woznick adventure. SchoolofManliness.com is a place for men of grit and grace to join together to inspire, to encourage, and to challenge each other to grow in manly virtue. Members receive morning man meditations, a monthly curriculum that is rich with audio, video, and written content, and a trail guide to help you map out your new trajectory. Many of our members lead their sons through this same curriculum. Your membership gives you access to both the Man Cave, which is our non-Facebook type community, and the School of Manliness at schoolofmanliness.com. Become a member at schoolofmanliness.com. Deep Adventure Ministries is grateful to Notre Dame Federal Credit Union for underwriting the Bear Woznick adventure on EWTN. Notre Dame Federal Credit Union provides car loans, mortgages, SBA loans, and depository accounts nationwide, as well as 24-hour support. Go to deepadventure.com to find their link, or go to NotreDameFCU.com. Mahalo to Notre Dame Federal Credit Union for making the Bear Woznick adventure possible. My newest book, 12 Rules for Manliness, Where Have All the Cowboys Gone?, has hit the top 5 in Christian books for a good reason. It's because men are searching for traction and a trail guide to live out the unique calling and the gifts that they were born with, that each man individually is factory loaded with by God. Paul said, be watchful, stand firm in the faith, act like men, do all things in love. Finally, here is a book that talks with men the way men talk with each other. Just plain old straight shoot. By the way, Mama Bears, this is your chance to get this message to your men. Go to schoolofmanliness.com or anywhere books are sold. 12 Rules for Manliness. Where have all the cowboys gone?
This is a warning. The Bear Woznick adventure is dangerous. The radical change Bear challenges you to is not for wimps. Change this station now to a soft rock station before it's too late. You've been warned. Now, here is Bear Woznick.
Aloha, welcome back to the Bear Woznick adventure. I'm your adventure guide, Bear Woznick. I want to invite the men there to go to our website, schoolofmanliness.com, and become a subscriber to our newsletter. Every Saturday morning, you get the podcast version, the video version of our radio show. And also, while you're there, why not join the School of Manliness, become part of the brotherhood there. We have a non-Facebook community of men there. We get together once a month in a Zoom video chat type Zoom call. Every morning you get an excerpt from the catechism as we take you all the way through the catechism. And Saturday mornings, you get a special letter that the regular subscribers don't get, which is the School of Manliness curriculum for that week, which is good for you to go through, but also it'd be really cool for you to lead your sons through. So schoolofmanliness.com, come join the rest of the men there. We're talking with Peter Giersch, about his new book, Talking of Michelangelo. Why did you give it this name, Talking of Michelangelo?
Well, early on in the book, I talk about that everybody needs to have a hermeneutic key. So if you study theology, the hermeneutic key is the thing that you use to understand a particular passage. And it could just be scripture, it could be anything. And I think we need to have a hermeneutic key for our life, right? And talk about this poem by T.S. Eliot, The Love Song of J. Alfred Prufrock. And there's a refrain throughout the poem. In the room, the women come and go, talking of Michelangelo. And it just keeps coming through the poem. It's such a beautiful little phrase. In the room,
love that. Yeah.
Talking of Michelangelo. Well, what I say about that poem is that all the critics have it wrong because they got the wrong Lazarus. There's a point at which Prufrock says, I am Lazarus, come back from the dead to tell you all. I shall tell you all. And they're all referring to Lazarus that Jesus raised from the dead, but it's not him. It's the poor beggar at the gate who comes back to tell you all, right? Because the rich man says, send Lazarus back. So that poem, for me, becomes this whole story about the prophetic voice. And here I am getting ready to tell a story that is going to be it contains some fun messages, but also some difficult messages. When you get to the very end, there's some challenging stuff that I went through about death, judgment, heaven, and hell, and all that. And that poem and that Talking of Michelangelo was just such a beautiful image from that poem. And then on the cover, you'll see Michelangelo's Last Judgment. And hey, it's about death, judgment, heaven, and hell. And Michelangelo's Last Judgment for me is, that's it, right? That is the Last Judgment. So I say the poem hangs over the book. The T.S. Eliot poem hangs over the whole book like a hinge. It just sort of holds the book together. So that's where the title came from.
Yeah, well, in the book you mentioned that there may have been more skulls than there in monks. I don't know exactly how you phrase it, but every monk, especially in the around the year 300, the monks of the desert. I don't know how long that this tradition carried on, but had a skull, and they may not have had the full gospel, but that skull that they had in their room was just to remember them. I have a saying. I've heard a saying. There's two points in a man's life. There's the beginning of his life when he lives his life, and then there's that moment in his life when he realizes he's going to die, and then his second life begins. When you really come to grips with the fact that, right, you're meditating on that. What are you going to deal with what really matters in your life, or just drift through it?
Boy, I love that. In fact, I often say to people, I've got a band and try to get my friends and my kids involved and, hey, sing this song. And they're like, oh, I'm afraid to sing. And I always say, we're all going to be dead someday. Nobody's going to remember that you sang this song, but you're going to miss this opportunity. And that's what that skull does. I think I was in the Louvre at that part of the book looking at a painting of a guy with a skull on his desk. And that was so common that people would have a skull on their desk, even if it was not a human skull, just made, a made skull out of steel or whatever. And because they've got to remember that someday I won't be here anymore. And I think I said in the book, there's probably more ads for Botox lying on people's desks than skulls.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And you think about it, my dad is a deacon. He's in heaven now, but once you're a deacon, you're always a deacon. And he told this story about a man very wealthy man who lived a very good life. And he said, God, I know. God spoke to him just before his death. And he said, God, I know, like, I'm can't take anything with me, but I've been living a pretty good life here. Don't you think I could bring something with me? And God said, well, I'll make an exception. I'll let you bring something. So he dies and he goes to St. Peter's Gate, and he's got a big old wheelbarrow full of gold bars. And Peter goes, you know what? You're not allowed to bring anything into heaven. Just only you can come. And he goes, well, I talked to God. And so Peter looks it up on the computer. Oh yeah, God gave you a special dispensation. You can bring something with you. But why did you bring pavement? But it is beautiful to think that the only thing we can bring with us is people.
Yeah, right.
And that's our mission, is to share the good news. And can you imagine?
Whenever I say to somebody, we'll all be dead someday, I always follow it up with, the only thing that matters is how we treat each other. I mean, how you act, how you treat people, because everything else is going to be forgotten. What you wore, my wife's like, oh, can I wear this? I'm not sure I can wear this, that, and the other. If you're nice and kind and loving to everybody, nothing else matters.
Yeah. But it's more love if you really get down to the grittiness of it. Aquinas said is willing the true good for others, and John Paul too said it through self-donation. So it's not just willing the true good, but doing something about it and giving of yourself. Yeah. So I kind of wince sometimes at the word nice because I think we've lost a lot of men have just become nice with no backbone. Yeah. But I know what you're referencing to. But to say, but how well did you love? How well did you serve? And that's the call of a man, to lay down his life for his family. Now I know you have 4 children.
Five. Yep.
5, and you're homeschooling them.
Oh gosh, keep in mind the book was written a long time ago, almost 20 years ago. So no, they're all grown now. Our youngest is sophomore in college. Our oldest is 29 years old and he works in my company, and then a bunch in between. Got a lawyer and a
But
musician.
They all went, but you were faithful to them, and I think you were homeschooling them though, weren't you?
We homeschooled for about half of their upbringing, and then we did some Catholic school, some public school. We did a lot of different things, but we sure poured into them, and we're all close, I mean, we may not all agree on everything, but the key thing is that we're a family and we love each other, and we hang together and we stick together, and we take care of each other. So.
Yeah. So okay, so start telling us the story now. As you walk into the monastery, and he goes, you say, I'm going to go get something to eat. And he goes, well, you can eat here.
Yeah. And I wanted to leave the monastery as soon as I got there. And the reason is because I walked into my room and I was going to turn some music on because I love music. I always have music on. In my bio, it tells I make music in my home studio, and we're streaming on Spotify's Giersch at Last with my kids and different people making music together. So I love music. I was going to turn on the music and something stopped me. And then I thought, well, what is that? And it was the silence, and it just hung in layers, and it was like the heaviest thing I've ever experienced. And I say in the book, like, we don't really know what silence is, because for us, silence is this little break between noises, right? But it's the other way around in the monastery, at least in this monastery. Like, a noise is a break in the silence. And it was heavy, and I had to get out of there. And as soon as I got there, I was like, I'm going out to dinner. And the monks were like, oh, you can stay here and have dinner with us. I'm like, I'm going to be here all week. Let me get out of here and get a break. And, I was thinking about manliness, and you wouldn't think of manliness as, can you handle the silence? But can you handle silence? The closest I get to that now is I do 2 hours of Eucharistic adoration every week from midnight Saturday night, Sunday morning till 2 a.m. on Sunday morning. And it's in this little church. It's the whole church. It's not just a room. Like some Eucharistic adoration, you're just like in a little room, but this is a whole church. And you're sitting there and it's so quiet. And I so want to turn on a little bit of soft music or something, right? Can you handle the silence? I think there's a manliness in being able to sit there with your thoughts in silence. And the retreat was that taught me a lot about that, I'll tell you.
Yeah, they call them silent retreats, and you go, "Are you serious? Are you serious?" I remember I had a cabin up in Montana that I built right up 2 miles from Canada, 2 miles from Glacier Park, North Fork of the Flathead River, and I was up there alone, and there's no neighbor within miles. Although sometimes you can hear the echo of someone chopping wood, But it was at the time when the animals that were going to hibernate had hibernated. The birds that were going to go south had gone south. The leaves had fallen, and there was a light snow, maybe 5 inches of snow, a new snow. But it wasn't snowing. It was a bright day. There was no wind. Usually nature is very loud. I want to get out in nature where it's usually very loud. There's breezes, there's birds, there's even little crickets moving. And I experienced total silence.
Wow.
And I would, I'm sure you've had this experience, but it's like, you'd think you'd hear a sound and then you realize you're only thinking that sound.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Mm-hmm.
the kind of silence. And that's that still point, I think, that God wants to bring us to, so that we bring our focus entirely to him in
Well,
a
it worked
world of
on this.
noise and distraction.
Yeah, and that's part of why this retreat, I say at the end of the book, like if you really are questioning whether or not I had this intense of a dark night of the soul or spiritual crisis, you got to appreciate what it was like to be in this monastery. I mean, it's all in French. And when they're not speaking French, it's complete silence, utter, heavy, thick silence. I mean, any silent retreat you've been on is child's play compared to
Well,
St. Joseph in
let's
Cornwall.
dig into it when we come back. Let's really dig
Okay.
into this in this dark night that you experienced. We'll be right back with our guest, Peter Giersch. His book is called Talking of Michelangelo. We'll be right back with the Bear Woznick adventure. People love our EWTN TV show, Long Ride Home with Bear Woznick. Thanks to you, the show has won 4 different Tally Awards. And now, instead of waiting each week for the next episode to air, you can actually binge watch our show and even share it with your friends when you go to deepadventure.com and join the Mama Bears or the Man Cave. Along with all the other benefits, you get total access to all the seasons of our aired episodes, plus instant access to episodes that won't even air for several months. Long Ride Home with Bear Woznick, a great way to communicate the gospel in a gritty enough way that even tough men will stop and watch at deepadventure.com. Here is a YouTube video short, which is based on an excerpt from my newest book, 12 Rules for Manliness, Where Have All the Cowboys Gone? A family counts on the man to be responsible. St. John Paul II's first writings were on love and responsibility. You cannot have one without the other. Nothing will make a boy into a man faster than protecting and caring for a woman and their child. I was married at 23. 3 months later, we conceived our first child. It was time for me to cowboy up. When a man has a wife and babies to take care of, he can't fail them. He has to live up to that responsibility come hell or high water. Just like any muscle grows stronger through resistance training, responsibility strengthens a man.
Be the kind of man that when he gets out of bed in the morning, the devil says, "Oh no, he's up." Go to deepadventure.com and invite Bear to speak.
Aloha, welcome back to the Bear Woznick Adventure. I want to invite you to, especially you mama bears, to check out my book, 12 Rules for Manliness, Where Have All the Cowboys Gone? It's something that, a lot of men don't like to read, but if you get them this book and you tell them just read the first chapter or even just the first 2 pages, they'll get hooked on it. I've had many men tell me, I don't like to read, but I read your book over the whole weekend, never put it down, and then started reading it again on Monday, because it's more like a conversation, like 2 men having a cigar and a shot of whiskey, on the back porch. And it just gets gritty and it gets real. And so it speaks to men the way men want to have that conversation. But I always ask the mama bears, go to Amazon or go to our website, School of Manliness, go to the EWTN catalog, any place, and get this book into the hands of your men. We're talking with Peter Giersch in his newest book, Talking of Michelangelo. So as you go into this, it's like you come into another dimension.
Absolutely. I mean, the first half of the book, I'm in Paris. I'm having, port wine and cigars, and I'm at the Eiffel Tower.
I remember having this. I remember this, Peter, being on the Champs-Élysées, and there's a guy sitting next to me having a cigar, and I'm like, "Can you tell me where you got the cigar?" Yeah, I got it in the airport at that international shop, whatever it's called, duty free shop. Oh, I just said, thank you. Just the fragrance of it means a lot to me.
Yeah.
And about 5 minutes later, he handed me a cigar.
Oh, yeah, nice.
Yeah. So right there on the Champs-Élysées outside, on the street there as the sun was setting, I have that moment too. But anyway, we digress. We digress.
So I'm in Paris and I'm having all this fun, and Eiffel Tower and dinner at the private club at the St. James Club and all that. And then I get down to the monastery, and I was going to be at the monastery, but I get to the monastery a day early, and I'm thinking, oh, I'm going to golf, right? But it's raining outside, and we can't figure out a way to get me to
Is there
golf.
a good golf course nearby?
We never even figured it out,
Okay.
because this is, I was in deep France, La France profonde, I say. And I was in kind of a deep area of France outside of Dijon. And so I'm sort of in my room, kind of fuming and all this silence, and I'm pouting a little bit. And Father Andre walks in, the man who is going to change my life, is kind of the protagonist of the story. And we talk for a second. He goes over to the window and he looks out. And he says to himself, "It is the will of God that it is raining today." And that sentence struck me because I've heard people say this is God's will, blah, blah, blah. But these guys, they were so deep into their faith that everything they said sounded different. It says in the Bible of Jesus, never did any man speak like this, never spake man thus, right?
Yes.
Nobody ever spoke like Jesus.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's what these monks were like. And so when he said it's the will of God that is raining today, I thought, wow, maybe there is a God. And I thought, well, wait, what are you talking about? You believe in God. But it was this such intense thing. It was like I was saying earlier, like suddenly I was in the presence of somebody who believed it, like there was no more room in his body. If his body was a container, there was no more room for doubt. Like every inch of it was filled with faith and belief in everything we talk about here and in the Christian faith. And that was the beginning of like, okay, I'm in for something here, And then later, as we go on, he starts talking about sins and sins against life. And we practice NFP and all that, but there's still ways to sin against life, even when you practice NFP. And I went and talked to him, and he's like, well, let me read this thing from the catechism. I'm like, I wrote a book on the catechism. He's like, yeah, right, whatever. I was so pathetic. And I was like, so does that mean I have a mortal sin on my soul? And he said, well, and he didn't really answer. I said, well, then let me go to confession. And he says, this was the best part of the book. He says, confessions are tomorrow at 3 p.m. And I'm like, what? You can't do this to me. And he played it so well. And he left me for like 28 hours, 30 hours just to think about this fact. Like, then I go into this whole thing. Is mortal sin a thing? Is it real? Do I really believe in this stuff? Maybe I believe in everything else, but not in this. It's cafeteria Catholic, right? And I spent a lot of time really pondering all this stuff and really trying to get out of, to weasel my way out of this, And at the same time, I'm doing the Ignatian exercises on hell and judgment and the devil and damnation. And I'm just like, whoa. I mean, it was really, really powerful experience.
And I know I think you made a reference to Dante also in your book early on.
Of course. Right?
So you've lived the three levels of.
Right. I mean, Dante's all over
speaking
that,
of going
right?
down, and speaking of going down in a hole, right?
Yeah. Right.
Yeah,
Right. Yeah.
You're like, when do I get out of here?
When do I get out of here? Well,
but
of course,
contemplating it.
confession is your way out, right? But before I got to that, I call it the door.
Not till 3 o'clock the next day.
Not till 3 o'clock tomorrow, right? And again, Father Andre knew what he was doing. He played it so perfectly because he gave me all that time to ponder this while doing all these things. But I really came close to saying, maybe I just don't believe in this stuff, And I really had to tear it back to the studs and say, go through in the book all these things. And I've had people say the book made me go to confession. The book made me think about, damnation. One person said, one non-Catholic said the book made me want to be Catholic.
It's because it's a thinking man's religion.
Yeah.
And
right.
this is a thinking man's book.
Yeah. Yeah.
Catholicism is a thinking man's religion. It's also a religion for illiterate people.
Yeah.
It's the simplicity and the profoundness that.
Yeah, right. When I grew up in a Polish neighborhood, we always talked about the Busha principle. Busha is Polish grandmother.
Yeah. We used to call them babushkas. I'm Ukrainian.
Babushkas. Okay, so the Busha principle is, Jesus was 100% God and 100% man, and the incarnation is a unveiling of the hypostatic union of the Trinity. And the Busha says, of course it is. She doesn't understand anything that you said, but of course it is. Jesus is God and man. She knows it. She doesn't understand all the
It's the simplicity. Yeah. I just remember my babushka grandmother praying the rosary endlessly. Did you ever hear the story about when Jesus appeared to 3 theologians?
No, I don't know if I did. I don't think so.
See if I can remember this one. First theologian, who do you say that I am? And the one theologian says, you are the, or he's asking just one theologian, you are the charismatic utterance of the ground of my being. The other one says, you are the hypostatic union. And the other one says, you are the eschatological presence of the ground, or something like that.
Yeah, right, yeah.
And Jesus said, what?
Right?
We get so caught up in
I am your friend.
But that's it. Yes, it's beautiful though, that the depth of Catholicism and of our faith, and then the absolute. Yeah. My mother says Catholicism is an elevator religion. You can explain the gospel from the time you get on the elevator to someone until you get off. It has that level of simplicity, but then the profoundness.
Yeah, I mean, in my book, though, people have commented that I use so much pop culture references, right? I'm talking about Frasier and Led Zeppelin and the Eagles and Jimi Hendrix. I mean, all this MTV.
But you use medieval references and everything else galore in different languages
too. Yeah, but that's the point. It's like Catholicism is everywhere.
Yes,
I love
it's universal, right? That's the universal
listen
church.
To "The Wind Cries Mary" by Jimi Hendrix, and if that is not about the Annunciation, I don't know what is. Yeah. Now, there's no way Jimi Hendrix knew that, although he did write the song for his girlfriend Susan, but he still called it "The Wind Cries Mary." Somewhere a queen is weeping. That's Mary waiting for the Messiah. Somewhere a king has no wife, and the wind cries Mary. How can that not be? And the traffic lights turned blue, not red, green, or yellow, but Mary. Anyway.
How about McCartney writing about his mom?
Yeah.
Let
it be, but of course,
Mother Mary comes to me.
Yeah, let it be done to me according to thy word. And again, he didn't know that. Yeah.
And he says, Mother Mary comes to me. But he's talking about his mom. But the whole world heard it as Mother Mary,
Yeah, right.
So
because it's everywhere, because Catholicism is everywhere. I say in the book, it's like a 2,000-year-old book club. Every possible interpretation of every possible thing has already been thought of. Said.
I know. Have you ever noticed how the early church fathers plagiarize you all the time? Like as soon as you come up with a new idea, a unique way of saying something, then you read, Augustine already said that.
I know. 2 years. I know. Everything's been said. I just started reading Thomas More's works, and he's Jeff Cavins and all these Scott Hahn, they got nothing on Thomas More. He said it all. Yeah. He said all of these arguments against Protestantism. They all come from Thomas More.
And you're an English literary teacher, or have been.
Yep.
And French teacher.
Yep.
So you're too smart to be on our show. We have Peter Giersch with us today, and we're talking about his book, Talking of Michelangelo. Death, Judgment, Heaven, and Hell in the Burgundy region. When we come back, can we talk about the Dark Knight?
Sure.
We're not talking about Batman here. We're talking about a different, the Dark Knight of the Soul.
Yeah, sure.
We'll be right back with Peter Giersch. And this is the Bear Woznick Adventure.
Deep Adventure Ministries is grateful to Notre Dame Federal Credit Union for underwriting the Bear Woznick Adventure on EWTN. Notre Dame Federal Credit Union provides car loans, mortgages, SBA loans, and depository accounts nationwide, as well as 24-hour support. Go to deepadventure.com to find their link, or go to NotreDameFCU.com. Mahalo to Notre Dame Federal Credit Union for making the Bear Woznick Adventure possible. Here is a YouTube video short, which is based on an excerpt from my newest book, 12 Rules for Manliness, Where Have All the Cowboys Gone? A cowboy is a man of his word. Here are the words of a cosmic cowboy. Let your yes be yes, and let your no be no. That cowboy was Jesus Christ. A cowboy's word is his bond. A cowboy contract was bound by looking the other man in the eye and simply shaking his hand. The cowboy's word meant that he could be counted on to tell the truth, not mince words, shoot straight, and say what needed to be said when it needed to be said to who it needed to be said to. Be a man of your word.
Are you still listening? I thought we warned you to change to an easy listening station. Well, you asked for it. Here is more of the Bear Woznick adventure.
Aloha, welcome back to the Bear Woznick adventure. We have, as our guest today, Peter Giersch, his newest book, Talking of Michelangelo. I just want to give a little shout out, a prompt for you. You know, our TV show, Long Ride Home, the motorcycle TV show, is on Prime Video, and there's 33 episodes. The last season is filmed in Hawaii. The fourth season is filmed here in Hawaii, and it's just real gritty. It's something that children will enjoy because we have some kind of fun stuff we do, but for all ages. But it's gritty enough for we have a lot of men that have come to the church actually by happening to walk across the room while this show was on. So it's Long Ride Home with Bear Woznick. You have to go with the with Bear part on Prime Video because there's other Long Ride Home type things, but check out Long Ride Home with Bear Woznick. Mama Bears, have this show on when your brother-in-law comes over next time. See if you can get his attention. We're talking with Peter Giersch and his newest book, Talking of Michelangelo. So, you know, when I was really had a strong conversion experience when I was 19, Peter, and I have this ragdoll little book here someplace, a little book called The Dark Night of the Soul. And someone gave to me again. I don't need to read that, man. I got to skip that. I mean, I went right into this infusion of the laying on of hands and the Catholic charismatic renewal, and it just blew my mind. But you know, the presence, unexpected infusion of God's love. I get to skip that part. Not so fast, right?
Right? No, I mean, not if you live long enough. You certainly won't. I mean, Mother Teresa had her dark night of the soul at the end of her life. I mean, how many saints? It's a gift. Yeah, how many saints have said, "Where's God?" But I'll tell you, I like to relate things back to manliness since I'm talking with you, Bear. And when I thought about this book, like, why would I write a memoir, right? Because who writes memoirs? Politicians who want to get their name out there. The famous people who were in the room where it happened will write a memoir. And then survivors, somebody who fell off a cliff and survived a night in the jungle or something. And I thought, well, which one am I? And I thought, I survived the dark night of the soul. I survived organized religion because people get bounced out all the time, right? They want to get divorced and remarried. They want to use contraception. They want to same-sex attraction, and they want to act on it. And they're like, screw it. I'm done with the Catholic Church. Well, here I was in this monastery and in this intense questioning of my own soul and like, does God send people to hell? And going through all this really intense thing with these really serious dudes. Like a lot of people who think I'm going to be a biker or I'm going to be this or I'm going to be that. Then they get around people who really do it and they're like, well, maybe not. And that's kind of where I was at. Like I'm a Christian all in, and I got around these monks and I was like, well, maybe not, you know? And I fought through it. And that's the last, I hope you read the last 4 or 5 chapters of that book.
I'll be sitting at the beach with a cigar today.
Okay, great. Because that's me struggling through this. I could have gotten bounced out right there. I just like so many people do not survive organized religion. I almost wanted to say that. I said to my publisher, we should put right on the back of the book, I survived organized religion. And they're like, well, it's kind of for Catholics and they won't get that and all that stuff. But it's funny, the young people in the room, when I was talking to the editorial staff, they got it. The young people are like, oh yeah, because their friends got bounced out of organized religion. Right? How many people bounce out of the Catholic Church as soon as it gets hard? And
well said.
Yeah, right. And it was hard, but in a manliness bragging moment, I survived it. And I think I survived it because I was raised well. But also because I'm super honest with myself. Like, I want to know the truth. At one point I say, you know, like, I don't want this stuff. And I said, well, wait, no, that's not true. I said, if it's not true, I don't want it. But if it's true, no matter how hard it is, I want it.
Yes.
Right? That's where I landed in the whole Dark Night of the Soul thing.
I was thinking when we're sailing, I used to sail alone mostly because no one dared to trust me to be the captain of the ship. So when I had my first sailboat, I would trail a line off the back of my boat, maybe 100, 200 feet. And every 10 feet, I'd tie a knot on that rope. And on a boat, the last knot in any line or sheet, as they are called, is called the bitter end. And so I trailed it in case I fell off. I could grab that rope, and that last one is that bitter end. And there is that point, I think, in everybody's life where we have to get to the depth of our being. Where deep is calling to deep as the cataracts roar, and it's way
That's
down
beautiful.
in there. And you have to get to sometimes pain will bring you to a silent place too.
Yeah.
But it's when you get to the bitter end, when you get to the end of yourself, that dark night where there's nothing to cling to but God, that all of a sudden everything becomes simple because God is simple. He's one,
Yeah. I think that's what John Paul is saying when he kept saying, cast out into the deep, right? You've got to push out into the deep. When I took on this 2 hours of Eucharistic adoration in the middle of the night, I wake up, I stumble down to my car in the garage and I'm driving there and it's, midnight on a Saturday night and Sunday morning. And I'm like, I must really believe in God.
Yes.
And I'm there for 2 hours, right? And I feel like how many people never push their faith to that point of where they go, do I really believe? Really? Like sometimes I see people lose their mind over some worry, and I know they go to church, they pray the rosary, and I think, and sometimes I've even said to people, what's the use of all that? Why do you go to church, pray the rosary, and all this if you're going to be so worried? Like when the rubber hits the road, where's your faith? Right? So, yeah.
It goes back to memento mori. So what was the dark night? Now you've got a few minutes to kind of bring us through that little.
Well, I guess I did kind
moment.
of explain it. It was this idea that, even though I had practiced NFP with my wife and, that I still had this mortal sin of life on my soul that had to do with contraception. And like I said, there's ways to get a mortal sin even when you're using NFP. And I was like, I didn't want to believe that I could have that. And then when I believed, okay, that I could have a mortal sin in my soul, then I'm like, but then that means that God sends people to hell. And nobody believes in hell anymore. I talk about how on the cover of the book, you've got the Last Judgment. Down here, you got the angel holding the book of life and the angel holding the book of the damned. And the book of the book of life is tiny. It's like this big. And the book
that's
of the
gnarly.
damned is massive, right?
Yes.
But in our minds, we've all flipped that around. We flipped it around to where like maybe Hitler's going to hell, maybe, a couple people are in hell, maybe an axe murderer, but everybody else is going to heaven, right? And that's the exact opposite of scripture, of Jesus's words, of, Michelangelo.
Narrow is the gate, straight is the
Right?
way.
And few find
Very
it.
few.
Right. So this is the dark night for me, was really struggling. How can God do that? And I tell you, a lot of things brought me out of it. But one thing was just going back to the fact that I am a creature. I was created by somebody else. I have no right to talk back. Can the potter say to the clay, why did you make me?
Yeah.
And the more I thought about the fact, like, we don't even know how we got here. Like we're living in a building with no first floor. Literally, because nobody knows how we got here. We all just woke up one day and we were here, and we act like it's no big deal, you know. And so that was the dark night, getting through that and saying, I'm not gonna demand my rights to believe whatever I want to believe. I'm going to believe what the Catholic Church tells me, no matter how hard it is. And I made it. So
yeah, but it's a journey. It wasn't blind faith. It was. How can you say it? It was a wrestling.
It was a wrestling match. It was a wrestling match with like Jacob and the angel, right?
That's what I was thinking of. Yeah. Well, and Jacob was fighting with God. This was the pre-incarnate Christ fighting with him in the middle of the night. They're rolling around all night long. And Jacob is losing. I know, like, I've trained in martial arts, a lot of different martial arts. I'm a second-degree ninja black belt. And one thing I know is when I'm getting beat up is to close distance. Like I had this one guy, Hector the molester. Oh, he always would just crack me, And the key would be to just grab him
Yeah.
and hold on.
You see
And
that
so
in
when-
boxing matches. Yeah.
Yeah. You're closing
Grab.
distance so that he can't hit you as hard. You clinch. And that's what this Dark Night is all about, is that it's that clinching with the Lord. And then in the end, he hits you right in the hip socket, which is interesting because I tore my hip muscle loose when my outrigger canoe hooled while I was surfing. And ever since then, I feel a pain there. And sometimes there's a limp. They had to reattach it. And that's the way, when you go through that dark night, you learn to walk with a limp. You hesitate. Lord, not my will, but your will be done.
Because at the end of the day, it all comes down to that. You know, I've just recently been studying the 12 steps of a loved one who's going through it. And that's all it is. It's like, I am God, you're in control, and I'm not. You know,
it is the will of the Lord. It is the will of the Lord that it rains today.
Yeah, right. And it's not my will because I want to golf. But when you say your will, like C.S. Lewis says, in the end, there's only two things that can happen. God's going to say, your will be done, or you're going to say to God, thy will be done. And those are the only two choices. God's going to say your will.
Yeah, and it's your choice. When God says to you, your will be done, you go to, then you don't want to be in God's presence, then you've chosen hell. Yeah. It's 100% under our control. We're talking with Peter Giersch. Are you going to have another book out soon?
Well, actually, I am just starting to write another book about you're going to love this one. It's about a bishop in India who converts headhunting tribes. I mean, these are literal headhunters. Yeah. One guy, he went in his trophy room, and it was all animal heads because it had all been human heads before he was converted, and he took them all down and buried them. And then he said, I'm only going to hunt animals from now.
Well, that sounds gross.
He's got a great story, though. So many adventures.
I'm kidding you. I'm kidding, but it sounds very gross. Sorry to speak that harshly about your next book. So we're visiting with Dr. Peter Giersch. I mean, I don't get to call him. You don't have a doctorate. Mr. Peter Giersch and his new book, talking of Michelangelo. And we got to go. The way we end our show here is in Hawaii. There's the word aloha. Ha means breath. Aloha means to give breath. And so just in the way Jesus breathed his spirit on the disciples and how God breathed into man and they became a living soul, we end it like this. May the breath of the Holy Spirit aloha you. Aloha.
Thanks for listening to the Bear Woznick Adventure. Find more manly conversation at the Bear Woznick Deep Adventure YouTube channel. Subscribe and ring the bell.